rescued my sisters from a nightmare of absence, confronting my monstrous family, and now fight tirelessly to rebuild their lives. I am currently in custody of my two little sisters, Amy, who is 17, and Liza, who is 8. For the sake of privacy, those aren't their real names. I'm a 29-year-old male living in Australia, and, for reasons only an 8-year-old can explain, Liza calls me Potato. So, this is my story, the tale of how I found out my family saw themselves as entitled to my sisters' bodies, and how I absolutely refused to stand for it. Before I go any further, I want to warn anyone who's struggled with abuse, parts of my story might be very difficult, so please take care. If you've walked a similar path, you have my deepest sympathy. The main part of my story happened about a year ago. I'd moved out about 6 years prior, heading off to a different state to study and work. Honestly, I hadn't been great at keeping in touch with my family, which is probably why all of this managed to stay hidden for so long. When I do look back, I know I didn't treat Amy as well as I should have. If I hadn't left, or if I'd stayed in touch more, I'm terrified I could have become as awful and entitled as the rest of them. The catalyst came when I returned home to celebrate a grandparent's birthday. After so long away, I spent the morning catching up with aunts, uncles, cousins, and of course my parents and Liza. That day was the first time I really noticed just how strange my family dynamics were. Maybe I'd picked up on it because some of my roommates had sisters, and I'd seen firsthand what healthy sibling relationships looked like, but I suddenly couldn't ignore how all the little girls in my family acted the same. They were quiet, polite, shy, overly obedient. I'd always assumed Amy was just an introvert, but my little cousins were exactly the same. It unsettled me, though at the time I tried to shrug it off. What truly shook me was realizing that Amy hadn't been seen all day, not even at a party in her own home. I slipped inside, assuming she was holed up in her room texting friends or working on some assignment. What I found is a memory I'll never forget. My oldest uncle on my father's side was holding my sister down. Amy, just a kid, was clearly in distress, struggling not to cry as he restrained her. Rage shot through me. I screamed, ordering him away from her and out of the room. I terrified them both in that moment, but I swear, if I hadn't feared for my own soul, I could have killed him right there. Amy was shattered, body and mind, when I tried to console her. She was covered in scars, and there was a rash I later realized was an allergic reaction. She's severely allergic to strawberries. She didn't speak, just stared up at me like she expected me to hurt her, too. Her room was almost a prison cell, blinds taped down, all her childhood things removed. Worst of all, she was several months pregnant. Furious, I demanded an explanation from my parents. Their answer was vomit-inducing. They insisted it was my uncle's right. My father simply gestured at a cousin, just 11 years old, sitting compliantly near her parents and told me, essentially, have fun. I was sickened. My only focus then became rescuing Amy. I quietly gathered her things, just a bag of necessities, then snuck her from the house to my car. I did the same with Liza. Part of me wanted to get all my cousins out at that very moment, but I could barely contain myself for Amy, who shook and cried silently in the backseat. We drove straight to the nearest police station to report every harrowing detail. What followed was a legal battle that would split my family forever. My parents and many relatives were outraged and combative, refusing to acknowledge any wrongdoing. They claimed it was tradition, something that had been done for generations, and there was nothing wrong with tradition. In the aftermath, Amy and Liza were placed in temporary foster care, and Amy crumbled under the strain. The reports I received were relentless, panic attack after panic attack, unable to trust anyone. When the dust settled, 3 of my uncles went to prison, likely for the rest of their lives. I was granted full custody of both Amy and Liza, without even court-enforced visitation for our parents. I received a financial settlement paid from various family members. My parents were ordered to cover every cent of therapy, medication, or medical costs for both sisters. My family fractured, a split right down its heart. Many aunts finally found the courage to leave their husbands, taking their children. Uncles who'd married and grabbed their wives, themselves survivors, and severed every tie. I maintained contact with these relatives. I'm grateful for their courage and support. A handful of older male relatives, raised to believe this horror was normal, entered counseling once they realized the truth. Some admitted to Amy what they'd done and apologized to both of us. These cousins did their best to rescue sisters, or younger cousins from similar horrors. Under the terms of the legal ruling, some of the younger men were shielded from jail time, provided they see mental health professionals and remain on official watch lists. I'm not exactly sure of every detail. No one knows for sure who fathered Amy's child. She chose, with the full support of her psychologist and after much discussion, to terminate the pregnancy. Both her mental and physical health would have suffered terribly. She made her feelings clear. She felt no connection, no love, would ever be possible toward a child born from such agony. For 6 horrific years, Amy was abused in every way possible, physically, sexually, emotionally, mentally. The main perpetrators were my father's 4 brothers and a brother-in-law. My parents watched, unmoved, offering no help or protection. In the courtroom, my uncles claimed this was their birthright, that this was Amy's rite of passage before she could be married off, at 18 to an uncle's friend. As appalling as anything, they tormented her with her strawberry allergy, pressing the fruit into her skin or forcing her to eat them to ensure she stayed silent and obedient. Many of my father's sisters quietly confessed to me that they'd endured similar fates, most lucky not to have allergies their tormentors could weaponize. Amy was so broken, I couldn't reach her for nearly 2 months. She barely spoke. With time and effort, she began to trust me. Now, she opens up more and more, sometimes sharing memories that scorch me to my core. I comfort her as best I can, fighting back tears. Liza, while not as physically or emotionally damaged, still required therapy. She'd been systematically groomed to believe these horrors were just part of growing up, and she needed help to see the truth before greater harm could reach her. But Amy was the one who needed the longest, hardest work. She trusts me now. A few months ago, I got Amy a service dog, carefully trained for the emotional support she needs almost daily. Sometimes it still feels overwhelming, but I'm grateful every day that both Amy and Liza are finally safe, and that I was able to sever them from the poison that was our family's tradition. Lickety-split really is the goodest of good doggos. She senses exactly when she's needed and makes an enormous difference calming Amy's anxiety, especially when we're out in public. We've had more than a few run-ins with entitled strangers and even unrelated parents who seem to think they, or their child, deserve her dog more than Amy does. Let me just say, they'd have to go through me first. No one deserves that dog more than Amy. But nothing compares to what happened with one of my aunts after her husband went to jail. She tried to take lickety-split, waiving the claim that their money paid for her. I wasn't having it. I warned her if she ever set foot on my property again, I'd call the police. There was already a restraining order keeping her from both my sisters. Apparently, that wasn't enough, because she slunk back later with tainted meat in a twisted attempt to poison lickety-split. Thank goodness for our wonderful neighbor who saw her lurking and chased her off. The police were called, and now she's in jail too, after paying me a sizable fine. By now, I know my way around the legal system, and I sued her, without hesitation. It didn't end there. Some family members still tried to sabotage me, desperate to drag my sisters out of my care. They reported me for everything from animal abuse to drug trafficking. The low point? When someone planted drugs in an identical stuffed toy to Amy's comfort bear and tossed it in our yard. But Amy would never do something like that. Her reaction clued me in immediately, and my home security cameras settled the rest. Over time, getting to know the local police officers became almost routine as they investigated each of these claims. They know I'd never compromise my custody or put the girls in danger. They're everything to me. I'll admit, I'm not perfect. I've snapped, yelled when I've been overwhelmed, even thrown stuff once or twice. Those moments scare Amy, but she's told me she never actually feels endangered. I'll usually soften things with a small treat or something she likes, though I know that's just a small balm on bigger wounds. A few weeks ago, my mother reached out. She said she wanted to talk. I hesitated, but agreed to meet her in the next town over. No way would I risk her following me home. She told me she was divorcing my father and wanted to rebuild her relationship with me and my sisters, especially with Amy, who hasn't called her mom in years. She said she never wanted this life for her daughters, that she was pressured into the marriage after getting pregnant with me. I couldn't hold back. I told her no. I refused to let her back into our lives just because she finally decided she wanted to make amends. She could have done so much to support Amy, to make her feel safe or cared for while everything was falling apart, but instead, Amy was shunned and isolated, only pulled out when she needed to cook, clean, or serve someone. Anytime Amy tried to confide in her, to say she was hurting or scared, she was berated. When I took Amy, she was well past her breaking point. She'd even planned to end her life less than a week after I visited. My mother argued that she had the same right as the relatives who left and kept contact with my sisters, but I told her that was because they left to protect their children, not a year after losing custody, but immediately. I reminded her I don't need to justify myself, I have custody, she doesn't. People have advised me to wait until Amy is healthier mentally, and until Liza is older, to let them both decide for themselves about contact. From what I've been told, Amy will likely still be dependent even after she turns 18, her mind just works differently. I don't have to worry about her mother sneaking contact behind my back. Amy has a phone and a computer but no social media. She doesn't want to give her family even the faintest chance to find her after all the threats she endured. This story isn't a dramatic slam dunk ending, but I have my sisters. They're safe, and they finally get to be kids. Amy is getting help, taking her time to step out of the fortress she built to survive. She sets her own pace, and I'll be there, always. She's still figuring out her likes and dislikes, but she loves reading with a cup of fruity tea and cherishes her collection of stuffed animals. Texture comforts her, so she always takes a bear everywhere. Once a week, we find new Build-A bears she might like. Her wish list is down to just 3 now. Honestly, watching Amy rediscover herself, find her favorite books and music, is the best part of my life. After everything, to see her finally manage a smile is everything I could ask for. Amy was pulled out of school at 10, not long after I left home, and held isolated in her room with precious little real contact. I'm not going to share a photo of lickety-split, she's very recognizable, and there are people out there who know just enough of the story to draw connections. The last thing Amy needs is the past catching up with her at random. This journey hasn't been easy. Some days are a real struggle. But my 2 little girls depend on me and somehow, I manage to stay strong. Their love is everything. Later, I'm scheduled to meet my mother again to discuss the very distant possibility of her seeing the girls, when Amy is much more stable and Liza is old enough to understand what I've protected her from. The choice will be solely theirs. And as for me, I was groomed too, in a different way. I was taught by my family that I could treat the women however I wished, but violence and cruelty never felt right. My anger comes out in stress, but I never saw hurting others as useful or justified. My studies were always my focus, and thankfully, not all the men in my family were abusive either. Some, like me, just wanted a different path. It was like a light switched on in my mind. If I was being taught certain things, what were they teaching my sisters behind my back? That realization hit me hard. I fully blame myself for how long Amy suffered under their roof. Every single day, I do my best to make up for it by pouring as much love and care into Amy as I possibly can, giving her what no one else bothered to give her for so long. I'm actively working on myself, too. I'm in therapy, and I work closely with Amy's therapist, making sure her healing process is a priority for both of us. Don't worry about my mental well-being, I'm taking care of that, and I'm not letting myself spiral. Those grueling legal battles still haunt me. I barely slept, sometimes surviving on just a few hours each day, because I was obsessed with combing through every single detail I could find to help my sisters. Most of it has turned into a messy blur in my memory, but I know I did everything I could. Even now, some details are fuzzy because I lived in a constant state of exhaustion, fueled only by my determination to save Amy and my other sisters. Amy was taken out of school under the guise of being homeschooled. To this day, I'm still not entirely sure how it worked after that. I was never homeschooled myself, and I didn't participate in homeschooling the girls. Somehow, my family managed to skirt around the authorities, around docs and any checks or balances on what was happening at home, for 6 painful years. I don't know how they pulled it off, but they did, and it kept Amy trapped long after she should have been safe. All of this weighs on me. The guilt, the confusion, but most of all, the drive to make things right for Amy and, in a way, myself. I can only move forward by making sure the love she finds now is real, the healing genuine, and our scars, though deep, are slowly fading together. Update 1. The thought struck me the other day that it might be nice to give an update on myself and the girls for anyone curious about how we're doing. To start with, we're all doing really well. Amy's therapy has been progressing, and she's becoming so much more comfortable in social settings. She still deals with selective mutism, but she's making real progress. On the physical side, I'm ecstatic to say she's officially a healthy kid now. She finished her last medical procedure and rounds of physio back in January. When she first came to me, Amy had a lot of issues with her bones and was malnourished, but with a lot of care, that's all resolved. The difference now is incredible. She shows a lot more emotion, is much more affectionate towards those she trusts, and the nightmares that used to torment her have become much less frequent. Amy still needs regular therapy, but her therapist has been very pleased with how she's doing. I've had people wonder how she keeps up in school. Well, I'll be honest, she doesn't, and that's absolutely fine. For now, her main focus at school is learning how to socialize. There's no pressure for grades or test scores, those can come later, and even her teachers give her easier assignments despite her actually being 2 years behind her age group. The important thing is her well-being and building confidence. Liza is thriving at school as well. She takes after me, I think, very bright and near the top of her grade. I can't help but be proud. Since my last update, I sat down with her and talked more about what happened in her past because she started asking about seeing her parents again. If it were up to me, that would never happen. Still, I believe it's her right to make a decision when she's older, so I've been slowly telling her more of the truth. Only when she fully understands everything will I let her decide if she wants supervised visits. On my end, I finished my studies for my field and was promoted pretty quickly once I qualified. That's enabled me to work from home more often, which means I get to spend much more time with my girls. And yes, I absolutely call them my girls, why wouldn't I? I've also made real progress with my anger issues, something I know people have been concerned about. It's been quite a while now since I've had an outburst, which is a relief for all of us. We moved towards the end of September. Since then, there have been no more negative encounters with entitled parents. The girls still attend the same school, and our new house has a much bigger backyard. Lickety Split absolutely loves it. She's doing great too, by the way. That's about all the important news I can think of right now. Amy wanted to add a little message. Hi readers, I wanted to say thank you for being friendly and helpful with my brother and saying nice things to Liza and me. Potato would read them to us and tell us how many people wished us well, and it was very nice of everyone. Thank you for being nice and I hope you all have a nice day, or night. It's night time now and I'm going to bed now. Thank you for all the support. Update 2. To anyone who's been wondering, we're all doing fine here. I made the decision to self-isolate a while back, mostly because Amy's immune system is weak even under normal circumstances. My amazing girlfriend has taken over all of our shopping, making sure we don't have to risk anything. The girls and I have pretty much made hot chocolate and Animal Crossing our new way of life. We've disappeared into that world together, just escaping reality for a bit. Update 3. I wasn't planning on posting another update so soon, but life has a way of throwing curveballs when you least expect them. The past few months have been complicated, to put it mildly. First, the good news. Amy's been doing incredibly well. She started a part-time job at a local bookstore 3 weeks ago, just a few hours on weekends, nothing overwhelming. Watching her interact with customers, even if it's just nodding and pointing them toward the right section, has been amazing. The owner, Mrs. Chen, is this gentle woman in her 60s who's been incredibly patient with Amy's selective mutism. She even set up a little reading corner where Amy can retreat if things get too overwhelming. Liza's been accepted into a gifted program at school, which has her over the moon. She's been asking more questions about our family situation lately, specifically about why some of our relatives went to prison. I've been honest with her in age-appropriate ways, but it's clear she's starting to piece things together on her own. Now for the complicated part. About 2 months ago, my girlfriend Sarah started acting differently. She'd been with us for almost a year at that point, and I thought we'd built something real. She was incredible with the girls, patient with Amy, encouraging with Liza. I was even starting to think about proposing. The first red flag was when she suggested Amy might be ready to move into her own place. When I explained that Amy wasn't anywhere near independent enough for that, Sarah got defensive, saying I was enabling her. That should have been my warning sign right there. Things escalated when Sarah started pushing for more alone time, suggesting the girls could stay with other family members for weekends. When I reminded her that wasn't an option, she accused me of putting Amy and Liza before our relationship. She wasn't entirely wrong, they absolutely come first, but the way she said it felt like an ultimatum. The breaking point came 3 weeks ago. I came home from a grocery run to find Sarah in Amy's room, going through her things. Amy was curled up in the corner with lickety-split, clearly distressed. When I demanded to know what was happening, Sarah claimed she was just cleaning, but Amy's comfort bear, the one she takes everywhere, was thrown carelessly on the floor. That's when Sarah finally showed her true colors. She said she was tired of living in a group home and that Amy was manipulating me with her trauma. She said if I really loved her, I'd consider alternative living arrangements for Amy. The fact that she used those exact words, the same clinical language the courts used, made my blood run cold. I told her to pack her things and leave. She didn't take it well. What I discovered later was worse than I could have imagined. Sarah had been in contact with my mother for months. Apparently, my mother had found Sarah through social media and had been feeding her information about our family situation, convincing her that I was damaged and needed help making rational decisions about the girls. My mother had painted herself as the concerned parent who just wanted her daughters back, and Sarah bought into it completely. They'd been planning to present a united front to convince me that Amy needed professional residential care and that Liza would be better off with her real mother. The worst part? Sarah had been taking photos of our daily routines, our house, even Amy's therapy appointment schedule. She'd been documenting everything under the guise of being a loving girlfriend, but really she was gathering intelligence from my mother. I only found out because Amy finally told me that Sarah had been asking her strange questions, things like whether she missed her real family and if she thought I was too controlling. Amy, bless her heart, had been too confused and scared to tell me earlier. The legal ramifications are ongoing. My lawyer is handling a restraining order against Sarah, and we're looking into whether my mother violated any terms of her existing restraining order by using Sarah as a go-between. The police are investigating the photos Sarah took, particularly the ones of Amy, as potential stalking evidence. Amy's taken this betrayal harder than I expected. She'd started to trust Sarah, had even called her by name a few times instead of just nodding acknowledgments. Now she's back to being suspicious of everyone outside our immediate circle. Her therapist says it's not uncommon for trauma survivors to experience setbacks when trust is broken again, but it doesn't make it easier to watch. Liza, surprisingly, has been our rock through all of this. She told me the other day that she never really liked Sarah because she smiled too much when Amy wasn't looking. Kids have incredible instincts sometimes. The silver lining in all of this mess is that it's shown me how strong our little family has become. We're not perfect, and we've got a long way to go, but we're solid. Amy's been more communicative since Sarah left, like she feels safer expressing herself now that the threat is gone. We've made some changes to our security, both digital and physical. New locks, security cameras, and I've limited our social media presence even further. It's unfortunate that we have to live this way, but it's necessary. I'm back to being single and honestly, I'm okay with that for now. My focus needs to be on the girls and on healing from this betrayal. Amy needs to see that I'll always choose her and Liza over anyone else, no matter what. Sometimes I wonder if we'll ever truly be free of the past, or if there will always be someone trying to drag us back into that nightmare. But then I see Amy smile when she discovers a new book, or hear Liza laugh at something ridiculous on TV, and I remember why none of that matters. We're building something new, something better. And no one, not my mother, not Sarah, not anyone, is going to take that away from us. Update 4. I've been putting off writing this update for weeks now, partly because I wasn't sure how to process everything that's happened, and partly because I'm still dealing with a legal mess. But people have been asking, and honestly, writing these updates helps me sort through my own thoughts. The past 2 months have been a roller coaster in ways I never expected. After the whole Sarah situation, I thought we'd finally have some peace to heal and move forward. I was wrong. It started with Amy's job at the bookstore. Mrs. Chen had been nothing but wonderful, patient, understanding, never pushing Amy beyond her comfort zone. Amy was actually starting to blossom there, even managing short conversations with regular customers. Then, about 6 weeks ago, Mrs. Chen's nephew David started helping out more often. David seemed nice enough at first. Mid-20s, studying education at university, good with people. He was gentle with Amy, never made her feel pressured to talk, and even brought her little gifts, new bookmarks, specialty teas she might like. I was cautious but hopeful. Amy deserved to have normal interactions with people her own age. The first warning sign should have been how quickly Amy started opening up to him. Don't get me wrong, I was thrilled to see her making progress. But in hindsight, it felt too easy, too fast. Amy, who takes months to trust anyone, was laughing at David's jokes within 2 weeks. Everything changed 3 weeks ago when Amy came home from work visibly upset. Lickety-Split was on high alert, pressed against Amy's side in that way she does when Amy's anxiety spikes. When I asked what was wrong, Amy just shook her head and went to her room. I should have pressed harder. I should have known something was seriously wrong. The truth came out 2 days later when Mrs. Chen called me, her voice shaking with anger and disappointment. David had been recording Amy, not just casual conversations. He'd been deliberately trying to get her to talk about her past, about our family, about the court cases. He'd even asked her about the bad things that happened to her before she came to live with me. Mrs. Chen found the recordings on David's phone when she caught him playing them back in the store's break room. Hours of audio, some of it Amy's voice barely above a whisper as she described nightmares or mentioned fragments of memories. The violation was complete and calculated. It gets worse. David wasn't just some creepy guy with boundary issues. When Mrs. Chen confronted him, he broke down and admitted that someone had been paying him to get close to Amy and gather information. He claimed he didn't know the full story, just that a woman had contacted him through social media, said she was Amy's real mother who'd been unfairly separated from her daughter. My mother. Again. The police are involved now, obviously. David's been charged with stalking and harassment of a minor, and they're investigating whether this constitutes a broader conspiracy. My lawyer thinks we might have grounds for a more serious case against my mother if we can prove she orchestrated this. Amy's been devastated. She'd started to trust David, had even mentioned to me once that she thought he was nice like potato. Hearing her say that, hearing her compare him to me, and then finding out he'd been manipulating her the entire time. It's broken something in her that was just starting to heal. She quit the bookstore job. Won't even walk past the building anymore. Her therapist says we're looking at months of additional work to rebuild the trust that was shattered. Some days, Amy barely speaks at all, even to me. But here's where things get complicated in a way I never saw coming. Last week, while I was spiraling over the David situation and trying to figure out how to help Amy, I got a call from Marcus. Marcus is, well, I guess he was my closest friend before I moved away for university. We'd kept in sporadic touch over the years, but nothing serious. He'd heard through mutual acquaintances about what happened with my family. The court cases made local news, apparently, and he'd been trying to work up the courage to reach out. Marcus showed up at our door last Tuesday with takeout from my favorite Thai place and a sincere apology for not being there when everything fell apart. We talked for hours after the girls went to bed. It felt good to have someone who knew the old me, who remembered who I was before all of this happened. The problem is that Marcus isn't just offering friendship. He made that pretty clear by the end of the evening. And the bigger problem? I'm not entirely opposed to the idea. I know how this looks. I know what people will think, that I'm jumping from one relationship disaster straight into another, that I'm not thinking clearly, that my judgment about people is clearly compromised. And maybe they're right. But Marcus knew me before. He knew my family was messed up, maybe not how messed up, but he'd picked up on enough to ask questions back in university that I'd brushed off. He's not coming into this blind, and he's not trying to change our situation or push the girls aside. When Liza met him, her reaction was immediate and positive. She spent 20 minutes showing him her art projects and explaining her favorite video games. Even Amy seemed less tense around him than she usually is with strangers, though she still kept Lickety-Split close. I'm terrified of making another mistake. Sarah seemed perfect too, in the beginning. She was patient and understanding and said all the right things. How do I trust my judgment when it's been so spectacularly wrong? Marcus knows about Sarah. I told him everything, the betrayal, the collaboration with my mother, the photos, all of it. His reaction was exactly what I needed, anger on our behalf, and a promise that he'd never do anything to jeopardize the girl's safety or my custody. But promises are easy to make. The custody issue is actually more pressing than my dating life right now. My lawyer warned me that these repeated attempts to infiltrate our lives, first Sarah, now David, could be used against me in court if my mother ever tries to petition for visitation rights. The argument would be that I'm putting the girls in danger by not properly vetting the people in their lives. It's a catch-22. The girls need to learn to trust people and have normal relationships, but every time we try, it seems like my mother finds a way to weaponize it. I'm starting to wonder if we'll ever be truly free of her influence. Amy's been asking more questions lately about why people keep trying to hurt us. How do you explain to a 19-year-old who's barely learned to trust that there are people in the world who will exploit that trust for money or twisted family loyalty? How do you tell her that her own mother is orchestrating these betrayals? I've been having nightmares again. Not about the abuse or the court cases, but about losing the girls. Dreams where social services decides I can't protect them, where my mother finds some legal loophole, where Amy decides she'd be safer without me. I wake up in cold sweats and have to check that they're still in their rooms, still safe. Liza's been my anchor through all of this. She started leaving little notes in my laptop bag when I work from home, things like "you're the best potato" and drawings of stick figures labeled "our family." Last week, she drew one that included lickety-split and, surprisingly, Marcus. When I asked her about it, she just shrugged and said, "He makes you smile like you used to." I don't know what comes next. Marcus has been patient, giving me space to figure things out, but I can see the questions in his eyes. Amy's therapist thinks she needs several more months before she'll be ready to try trusting new people again. The legal battles with my mother show no signs of ending. Some days I feel like I'm drowning in the responsibility of keeping everyone safe and happy while trying to figure out my own life. Other days, I look at Amy organizing her stuffed animal collection or Liza practicing piano, and I remember that we've already won the most important battle. We're still here. We're still together. And nobody, not my mother, not her hired manipulators, not my own doubts, is going to change that. I just hope I can figure out how to build something good from all this wreckage without making it all worse.